Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashubhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakabhatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. In the 16th chapter, Krishna gives a definition for each one of the ashrams, what the qualities are. Abhayam Satvasam Shuddhira Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti Dhanam Dhamma Svijagnyascha Svadaya Tapa Arjavam. So for the Brahmacari, for the sannyasi, there is fearlessness, purification of one's existence, and the cultivation of spiritual knowledge. Abhayam comes about when one realizes one's eternal. That's eternal existence, Sat. And Jnana Yoga is realized, Chit, knowledge, and some Sudhira, Jnana Yoga, Abhayam Sattva Samsudhira. Sattva Samsudhira is bliss, purification of one's existence. Because by nature the soul is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss, and the perfection is to become full of knowledge, eternally full of bliss. Krishna consciousness is just uncovering our natural state of consciousness. But in order to do that, we have, for the vanaprastha, we have tapasya. Tapasya brahmacharyena samena cha dimena cha. One has to, the main tapasya, as Brahma performed, is to utilize the senses and the mind in Krishna's service. Brahma took a long time to meditate, but then he finally realized Krishna. Krishna revealed himself, and Brahma spoke the Brahma Samhita. But his main tapasya was fixing his mind on the words tapasya, tapa. And for the householder, there's dana, damas, and yagya. Dana, dana, and yagya. So these are have the seeds of becoming abhayam sattva samsudhira there. To control the senses and the mind, to give in charity and to perform sacrifice. That will lead one to the platform where one can perform to tolerate. But why is one tolerant? What does one learn in the household life that leads one to tapasya? One learns how to fix the mind on some aspect of Krishna. For us, that aspect, of course, is Bhagavan. So by dhanam, one realizes that this world belongs to Krishna. It doesn't belong to us, and one gives in charity. So one can realize Krishna is everywhere, everything belongs to Krishna, the eternal aspect. Dhanam, one realizes everything should be utilized in Krishna's service and should be done for the pleasure of Krishna, yajna. So that's progressively eternity, bliss, eternity, knowledge, and bliss also. One gets a higher taste by becoming more and more conscious of Krishna, and therefore one can practice in the forest austerity because one is on a different platform than the material platform. One is experiencing, as it says, Bayas parsheva saktatma vindatminiyat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Such a person is not attracted to external objects, but is always entranced, enjoying the pleasure from within. In this way, the self-realized soul enjoys unlimited happiness because he concentrates on the Supreme. In other words, concentrating on the Supreme is what we're trying to do. And things that help it are things in the Brahmacari life. The next one is Swadhyaya, to hear about the Supreme, and then practice. Without much trying to be engaged with without putting oneself unnecessarily into difficulty, one is simply trying to hear. But not only hear, but learn the basic elements of how to put that hearing into practice. So one should know what one is trying to hear about, what one is trying to develop, what qualities. So that's in the 7th chapter. Brahmacari Guru Kule, Vasan Danta Gurur Hitam, Achavan Vasavo Nicham, Guru Garava Sorida. So one should know these, if one is a Brahmacari, or one is anything, if one is a Brahmacari, a Grihastha, or a Vanaprastha, or a Sannyasi, one should know what one is trying to accomplish, and how to accomplish it, and what one can expect if one accomplishes it. So in Brahmacari life, according to Swadhyaya, that self-study is explained in the 7th chapter, Brahmacari Guru Kule. One should live under the shelter of the Guru, Guru meaning ultimately under Krishna and the Paramatma and his representative shelter. One should learn how to take shelter, and what is that shelter? Brahmacari Guru Kule, Vasan Danta, how to control the mind and senses and utilize them in Krishna's service. Guru Hitam, for the benefit of the Guru who represents Krishna. Vasam Danta Guru Hitam, Achavan. For simply the service, Nichava, with humility, knowing well that one is actually eternal, 1/10,000th the size of the appearance stars spark, and that's what we're trying to realize. Not how great we can be, how important we can be, but who we actually are. That we're actually one of the unlimited servants of the servants of the servants of Krishna. Nichava. And one has to practice. You can't practice becoming humble unless you're put into a situation where you're actually practicing being humble. Due to our false ego, we're conditioned to be something other than humble because we think we have a material body which is comparable to other material bodies in its opulences. And we think if we were a little bit ahead of someone else in material opulences, then we're better than the other person. Or if we're behind someone else in one of those material opulences, we're not as good as the other person. And therefore being humble is not possible because we're an illusion. We're engaged like everyone else in the competition to become something important in the material world in some aspect. Achavan, like a servant, one should become humble. Nicho, guru, for the service of the guru, drida means that one should be surida, one should be favorable. Not that I never really wanted to become humble, but I'm forced to become humble so I don't suffer, but I don't really want to be humble. I'm forced to follow the process, otherwise Maya will kick me. But I really want to do it. No, with determination, one has to become determined to follow the process. And to regulate one's eating, sleeping, so that one can get a higher taste in Krishna consciousness, so that mating and defending becomes out of the question. And surida, with a favorable attitude, positive attitude. No one can remain a brahmachari for very long unless he's joyful in what he's doing, unless he's coming actually to Brahman platform and becoming prasanatma. So we should know, brahmachari life is studying, we should know what, in all these verses, what we're studying, what is the vision we're trying to acquire? What is the activities in order to experience that vision? And what it's like to experience that vision? Sambandha, abhidheya, and prayojana. Unless we know how we're trying to see things, how can we see things properly? Right now we see things according to the modes, so we should also know what is my present vision according to the mode, what mode I'm in when I'm seeing, because our vision is always changing. So we have to learn what the vision is under the different modes and what the real vision is, what the reality is. And what it's like to act into the mode of ignorance and what the results are. What it's like to act in the mode of passion and what the results are. And what it's like to act in the mode of goodness and what the result is. And what it's like to act transcendently. And then we can see whether or not what mode of nature I'm in, or whether I'm acting transcendently, and if I'm actually getting the results that are explained in the Shastra, and whether we actually like the results, whether we rather act in ignorance, passion, goodness, or transcendental. So that's self-study, that's knowledge. Then we should see what the results are, as they said, the result. We should know what our vision is, what it's like to act in that vision, and what the results we can expect. So practically every verse in Bhagavad Gita or in our scriptures deals with one of those three things. And for a brahmachari, trying to realize the absolute truth, that one has a brahmachari means that he actually has interest in realizing Brahman. Therefore he is willing to follow the process to realize Brahman. If one doesn't believe in Brahman, why will one follow the process to attain Brahman? Therefore, at least theoretically, as Prabhupada writes in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita in the introduction, that one lady asked him to recommend an edition of the Bhagavad Gita in English. And Prabhupada said he wasn't able to do that because in practically every edition of the Bhagavad Gita, the author has given his own opinion, different from Krishna's opinion, especially in the fact that Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that he's God. But the authors don't like that very much. Most of the commentators don't like the fact that Krishna is declaring that he's God, the only supreme God, that he's above Brahman, above Paramatma, that he's eternally God. Everything rests on him, just like pearls are strung in a thread. Therefore they come up with other commentaries, that Krishna is simply imagining himself to be God, or we're all God, whatever else. But Prabhupada said if one wants to take a medicine, he has to take the medicine according to the expert doctor or according to the label on the bottle of the medicine. Otherwise, taking the medicine will not be very helpful. So if one wants to take the medicine to get out of material existence, and if we agree, well, at least Bhagavad Gita is proclaiming that it's the process of getting out of material existence, that we just can't take Bhagavad Gita and whimsically interpret it according to our own imaginations and expect to get any benefit from it. Just like one cannot expect to go to the pharmacy and choose some medicine according to one's whimsical understanding, or one's whim. He likes the color of the medicine, or he likes the name of the medicine, and he takes it accordingly. No one has to follow the expert doctor and what the instructions are according to the label on the medicine. Similarly, if Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita, we should, if we want to take advantage of Bhagavad Gita, it's not that everyone is going to hear Bhagavad Gita. Matter of fact, most of us are asleep right now. What's that?
Resting my eyes.
Resting your eyes. Okay, good. We caught you before you fell asleep. So, now in Bhagavad Gita, at least Krishna is supported that he's God by persons such as Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, later on by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, etc. They all agree that Krishna is God. And also in the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma declares that Krishna is God. Now, of course, we may not have any faith in any of these persons. Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, whatever. We may not have any faith in them, or in the Brahma Samhita. Still, if we want to derive any benefit from reading Bhagavad Gita, at least theoretically we have to accept that Krishna might be God. And therefore, or he might be God, he may not be God, but at least in the submissive spirit, that theoretically accept that he might be God, then we might derive some benefit from reading Bhagavad Gita, if we're willing to follow its instructions. At least to discover whether Krishna is God or not. Now, if one has no interest in finding out what the truth is, whether I'm spirit, or there's a Paramatma in my heart, or Krishna is God, then there's no reason to read Bhagavad Gita. It's called faithless. If we don't read with some kind of faith, then it's a waste of time. There are some people who don't know anything about the Vedic scripture. So they're living more or less like animals. Some people may know the Vedic scripture, but they don't really follow its instructions. And some people follow the instructions, but they don't accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. Or they may even accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they don't follow his instructions either. So they're all faithless, to one degree or another. So without some faith in the instructions, then reading Bhagavad Gita, at least with the idea that we're going to follow them, then we're wasting our time. We can memorize all the slokas of Bhagavad Gita and not go anywhere in realizing what they are. Especially not realizing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, there's a process. For instance, that's all Bhagavad Gita. It just explains the process in different ways. That is, for instance, we can take up the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yanena tu tad agyanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavad jnanam prakashiti tatparam One, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. In other words, Krishna is explaining there that he's God, and that if we want to see things properly, we have to concentrate our minds upon him. Then everything can be seen properly, just like when the sun comes up, one can see everything in the light of the sun. So in the consciousness of Krishna, everything can be seen properly. But how to become conscious of Krishna? Tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayanaha, gachatnipana avritim jnana nirdutta kamashaha. One's buddhi, tad buddhiyas, one's intelligence. So first thing is to fix our intelligence, to see things properly. And that's possible by hearing. Seeing things, hearing and assimilating the knowledge, practicing the knowledge with our intelligence. So we hear with our intelligence, we practice with our intelligence, and then our intelligence becomes realized. We hear theoretically, we practice with faith, according to that theory, that it could be true, may not be true, but we're going to practice and see if it is true. And then if Krishna is pleased and he enlightens us, then we see not only theoretically, but we see by experience, by realization. So first business is utilizing our intelligence in Krishna's service. Tad buddha, tad atmas, the mind. So the intelligence is trying to fix the mind on Krishna through the process of devotional service. Fix the mind upon Krishna means that first of all, accept, at least theoretically, that everything here belongs to Krishna and should be utilized in Krishna's service under the direction of Krishna's representatives. So that's using the intelligence to put the mind on Krishna. And then to do it with love, with enthusiasm, with care and attention, however we want to define it. And then Krishna, we remember Krishna. And if we remember Krishna in that spirit of devotion, then we can experience what it's like, Krishna consciousness. Then one can see things properly. Then one is enlightened by which nescience is destroyed with Krishna consciousness, in the presence of Krishna. Atmanas tad nishta, so that faith. So faith has to be developed. In fact, our process is the process of developing faith. Adao shraddha. Sada, we can say, sad, put our consciousness a little bit on Krishna. Somebody gets a little prasadam, he likes it, because it's putting the consciousness a little bit on Krishna. And then sadhu sangha, one becomes interested in how I can fix my consciousness more on Krishna. And then one learns the process of devotional service, and one is able to gradually overcome the different... one is able to learn the science of bhajana kriya, anishnata bhajana kriya, to become steady in bhajana kriya. Namely, get over our false ego, utsahamai, then tarana, gana tarala, alternating, sometimes enthusiastic and sometimes unenthusiastic. The inability, becoming attached to sense gratification, the inability to renounce the objects of the senses, unsteadiness in improving our devotional service, and finally trying to enjoy the small waves, taranga rangini, of making some improvement in devotional service and feeling ourselves to be more advanced than everyone else, trying to enjoy some profit from becoming steady in devotional service. To an arta nivritti, especially chanting without offense, to the platform of nishta, when one is actually on the Brahman platform. One is accepted that one is a spiritual being and acts only on the basis of one's spiritual interest. So that's development of faith, and then devotional service becomes spontaneous, and the faith increases because ruchi, asakti, bhava, prema, the experience becomes more and more intense of the presence of Krishna. One is able to realize one's eternal nature, of it being blissful, and being more and more conscious of Krishna everywhere, how everyone and everything is related to Krishna. So, tadbuddhiyas tadatmanas tadnishtas tadparayanaha, having no other interests except for Krishna's interests, realizing that only if I become Krishna conscious, or if I do the activities that will help me become Krishna conscious, am I actually safe from the misconceptions that Maya is offering me. There's no exercise, there's no philosophy, there's nothing we can do to get shelter, real shelter, except for trying to become conscious of Krishna. Tatparaya, tatnishchas tatparaya, gachat napana arvitan. And then one can proceed straight on the path of self-realization. Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani gavi hastani shuni chaiva svapake cha pandita samadarshana. Then we can see how Krishna is in everyone's heart, including my own heart. And one is not envious of anyone. He realizes everyone is a spirit soul. Some are under illusion, some are awakened to different degrees. And one realizes that it's in everyone's interest to become conscious of the relation with Krishna. And our business is not to criticize everyone, it's to help them. If we want to serve Krishna, then we have to help them become conscious of the relation with Krishna. That's our only relationship we have with others in the material or the spiritual world, is trying to enthuse everyone to develop their relation with Krishna. It may be different ways of doing that according to the person's conditioned nature, but still that's our only relationship we have with anyone in Krishna consciousness, helping them become conscious of Krishna. Then, ihaivatera jita sargo yesham samyesam samanak nidosham hi samam brahma tasmat brahmanite sita. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they're already situated in Brahman. So then one is on the actual platform of liberation. And the prarishat priyam prishat no dvijat shapriyam stira buddhira samudo brahmavid brahmani sitaha. That one who's doesn't become elated when he obtains something pleasant, or becomes despondent when he obtains something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. So that realization of Brahman deepens so that one is undisturbed in any material circumstance, because one is actually in a different platform of experience. And what is that platform? Vayas parsheva sattatma vindat yatmini yatsukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshnayam ashnute. Such a person is not attracted to external sense objects, but is always in trance, enjoying such a person not as attracted to material sense objects, Vayas parsheva sattatma vindat yatmini yatsukham, because he's experiencing something because such a person is not attracted to material objects or sense gratification. Let's see what actually is the verse. Vayas parsheva sattatma vindat yatmini yatsukham. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure from within. In this way, the self-realized soul enjoys unlimited happiness because he concentrates on the Supreme. And what does he realize? Yehi samsparshya bhoga dukkha yona evate adyantavanta kontya nateshu ramate buddha. That an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, but due to contact with the senses with their objects, O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise person doesn't delight in them. So there's happiness in sense gratification that the happiness of becoming free from the pushings of the senses, but that's not the ultimate happiness. So while one is engaged in maintaining the body, one should not forget that while we're doing anything, including trying to maintain the body, we should do it in such a way as to help fix our minds on Krishna. And therefore we won't be attracted to the promise of sense gratification, because we already have a higher taste, which sense gratification will not seem, eventually it'll seem insignificant. And how does that one achieve? What is the process? Kama, krodha, shaknoti haiva yaksodum, praksharira vimokshana, kama krodha bhavan vegam, vyukta sasukinara. One is able to tolerate the urges of the senses and check the force of desire and anger. He's known as a yogi, and he's happy in this world. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses, check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and happy in this world. In other words, it has to be tested. It's not enough to think, well, I've avoided sense gratification and I've thought about Krishna for a little while. It has to be constantly developed throughout one's life, and it becomes deeper and deeper. Until finally, of course, then we have other verses in Bhagavad Gita and other, but ultimately we realize Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the controller, Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the friend. Everything here is Krishna's property, Brahman realization. Everything is meant for Krishna's pleasure, service to Krishna, that's chit. And then one realizes the wonderful relation one has with Krishna, as he's our well-wisher, Ananda. So this is the process of becoming Satchitananda, as explained. Or in other places it's explained in the same way, but we don't have time to go into all the... But every verse we should look at it the same way. What is the activity? What is the vision we should have? What is the activity on the basis of that vision? And what happy result we should expect to get from following that vision. Sambandha, Abhigaya, and Prayojana. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Usually when we're looking for something, for example, then we expect some sensory confirmation that we found it. Either we see it or we understand something. I'm looking for my phone. I'm going to see it when I find it. But when we're looking for Krishna consciousness, what's the feedback that we're expecting to get when we get there?
Well, we should know what it is at every stage. The ultimate feedback is, Bhakti Pareshanu Vyaktir, Anyatra Trisha Eka Kala, Prapanamanasya Yatashnatastus, Tushti Pushti Shudapayanukasa. Just like when you eat a meal, you expect some feedback. 3 things should happen when you eat a proper meal. You should become detached from hunger, there should be growing strength, and there should be satisfaction. So in the same way, by properly executing devotional service, we should become detached from material enjoyment. We should see things in relation to Krishna. Understand properly how Krishna is the proprietor, controller, and enjoyer. And we should have a detachment from the things that draw our mind away from Krishna, because we experience greater happiness when we're conscious of Krishna. We're developing love for Krishna and love for everyone and everything in relationship to Krishna. So that should say part. If we're not becoming detached from things that draw our mind away from Krishna, if we're not feeling greater love and appreciation for everything and everyone in relationship to Krishna, and if we're not understanding, however, we're not becoming detached from the things that draw away from Krishna, We're not understanding properly how everything and everyone is related to Krishna. And we're not feeling greater love and appreciation for everyone and everything in relation to Krishna. Then we're not going anywhere. We haven't eaten the meal properly, at least. In other words, if we're not experiencing bliss, knowledge, and eternally, we're not making progress towards that, we're not becoming conscious of Krishna. Yes?
What's the difference, because so the Krishna is adhokshaja, so what's the way of perceiving this? What's the mechanism? Because is it our sensual perception? I mean, it's not our sensual perception because you don't feel love with your eyes or something. But what's the
Well, Krishna is a kochaja to one who's not engaged in devotional service. Krishna doesn't reveal himself. He reveals himself to one who's engaged in service. Therefore, the process again is explained by Lord Brahma, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted as the beginning process of devotional service. Yane priyasamudapasta namanteva jivanti sanmukaritam pavidiyavartam stane stita shugikatam tanuvam manobhira ye priyasa jita jitopyas trilokyam. First thing is to give up the tendency to mental speculation, to investigate unlimitedly without drawing any conclusion, without assimilating the knowledge and coming into a conclusion on that basis. One should give up that tendency to just try to enjoy mental speculation. Yane priya udapasta namande, and try to become submissive to actually what's being said, not think that I already know everything. One should be interested in discovering, assimilating the knowledge, so we can actually understand it. By the great sages, by the great souls who are delivering the knowledge coming from Krishna, who have realized Krishna to a greater extent than we are, and we hear about a higher level of Krishna consciousness, and we want to attain that by following the process. And what is the process? Stane sita, remaining in whatever position we are. Shruti gatam, here, tanuvangmanobhir, and then be willing to utilize our intelligence, our mind, our tadudayas, as Krishna explained. To engage our senses, mind, and intelligence in Krishna's service. And our faith, our refuge, etc. And when Krishna sees that, ye priyasa, that never is Krishna revealed to anyone. But when Krishna sees that one is submissive to the words of the great sages, and be able to tolerate the tendency to speculate and to do whatever we want to, then the result is that Krishna becomes compassionate and reveals himself to such a devotee. So we should know what the process is, try to develop not only externally the process by following it, but also the mood that goes along with that process, the mood of being a humble servant to the servant to the servant, and actually practically put it into practice in the association of devotees. And then Krishna becomes, theoretically we should understand, Krishna will become pleased and reveal himself to us. Anything else? Yes?
We're discussing what's the difference between Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti externally and internally?
Externally, there may not be any difference. Internally, one is actually experiencing Krishna consciousness by understanding properly what Krishna consciousness is, understanding Sambandha, Abhideya, following it properly, and then prayojana, experiencing the result, becoming blissful, ramanti, in devotional service, experiencing Krishna consciousness and the pleasure, the happiness of doing service to Krishna. That one is spontaneous. Just like if there's a very nice prasadam being offered and you're hungry, then there's no problem of eating it. One was enthusiastic to do it because of the taste. But Vaidhi sadhana bhakti means that the taste may not be there all the time, but at least one has the intelligence that it could be there if I follow the process properly. Learn the mysteries of the science by following it and getting Krishna's mercy gradually. Things are revealed, and as things are revealed by hearing the philosophy and then utilizing one's energies in Krishna's service with enthusiasm, and then gradually the Krishna consciousness is revealed to us, then there's tushanti at every step. There's satisfaction that the process is working. I'm going towards the goal. Sometimes I'm in ecstasy, sometimes I'm just struggling. But I know that if I keep on following the process, then eventually I'll come to the spontaneous platform where I'll always be blissful in any material circumstance. So I follow with my intelligence to come to the goal, and when I reach the goal, then it becomes spontaneous, the service. Anything else? Yes.
Regarding that topic of Raganuga and Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, is Raganuga sadhana bhakti a stage that comes necessarily as Vaidhi develops and then one comes to the point of Raganuga? Or is it possible that someone starts their practice as a Raganuga sadhaka?
Well, you can't have Raganuga sadhana bhakti unless you're on the Raganuga platform. Unless you're liberated. There's no question of Raganuga sadhana bhakti. It's when you're liberated and you actually have a taste, you may practice a certain, state of, you may internally develop a certain state of consciousness in relation to Krishna. That's Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Following a liberated soul, their activities. But unless one is liberated, then it's just, it's not really, it's kind of imitation. Just like you may make the sounds, a woman may make the sounds of being pregnant, but just by making the sound, she's not going to give birth. So unless you're pregnant, making the sounds, it doesn't really make any difference. Is that right?
Yes, if I may just, one other question regarding the topic of Brahmacari specifically. To what extent, when thinking about what is the qualification or the guarantee that one will be able to continue living as a brahmachari for a life, to what extent that depends on one's conditioned nature, and to what extent that depends on other factors like training and outside influences?
Well, they must all go together. If your conditioned nature allows you to be trained, then you can come to the goal. If your conditioned soul, your conditioned nature, or your unwillingness to follow the process, your lack of faith in the process, or having another goal other than what the goal of the process is, then how long can one pretend? Everyone has some goal, everyone has some authority that they're following to attain that goal. So if I have some goal other than becoming Brahman, then that will come out and eventually I'll get what I'm looking for, and then I'll give up, may give up the process, because I got what I was looking for. If my goal is other than to become Brahman or realize Krishna, then one will give up the process when one gets what we is actually looking for by following the process. Just like I was distributing books in an airport with one devotee, and he was one of the top distributors in the world at the time, but it was a small airport in Charlotte, North Carolina, but he'd only stop the most beautiful, opulent women in the airport. And he was a tall, nice-looking devotee, and so it looked like there was Romeo meeting Juliet. And undoubtedly, after some time, you'd usually get a very good donation from the lady, give her some books. So that went on for some time. But one day he met the woman he was looking for, and that was the end of his brahmachari life and his book distribution. So he's apparently engaging in a devotional process, but he had some goal. And when he got the goal, he gave it up, the process, because he got what he was looking for. All right. Grantara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.